Good morning, good morning. It's grand to be on hand. Good morning to you. It's a song that used to play on WCCO radio, 830, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Every morning at 6 a.m. and I would wake up to that and it would make me happy. So good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Diabetes Reversal webinar. Glad you can make it. We're just gonna wait a little while here for people to hop on. And I'm wearing green today. I'm a week late from celebrating St. Patrick's Day, so I got a green Band-Aid on. I got a little green light behind me, my Garden of Original Greens shirt. So,
are you Irish?
I am a bit Irish.
A bit. I'm Irish. I wore green on St. Patrick's Day in honor of St. Patrick, in honor of my Irish heritage.
Yes. Excellent. I'm about a third Irish, I believe.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah, mathematically that doesn't actually work but if you add them all together and then if you add in English and Scottish, I'm about, I think, 2/3. So
I'm half Irish, half Scottish, half English, half German, and half Scandinavian and half Danish.
That math works well. Yeah. Well, good stuff. So Leslie, I'm seeing that our participant number is way down today. I'm thinking because our email probably just didn't go out to people that were registered. So
you're right. We are live on Facebook, so I'll see what we can do there.
Okay, good. So today's going to be more on the Facebook. So excellent. Well, good stuff. Today we're going to talk about immune systems, and we're going to take your questions. So, and a few other things we're going to cover. So, yeah. Hey, Pam. Good morning. So, Pam, said you did not get an email either. So, I think everybody.
I didn't either.
I think Zoom is probably testing their limits this week and this month with everything. Everybody's staying home and using Zoom for work and family things. So, I can imagine that but we'll look into it. There might be a setting where it had announcements go out for 6 months or something, and maybe we need to update it. We'll look into it. So, well, thanks for finding us, and good morning. If you want to say something in the chats, tell us you're here. I'd love to hear from you. Scott, let's go ahead and get started. And if you want to just give a little, start us off with a standard little disclaimer before we get into things. I'll let you do that, and then take us in.
Okay, deal. So first of all, we discuss things in this webinar for general populations, for general information. This is not necessarily specifically applicable to any one individual or one situation. So you have to apply your situation or apply the information to your situation specifically, and that's best done if you have some help. So if you contact your doctor and you say, does this apply to me? This is what I heard on the Barton Publishing webinar, and it's generally really great. Does this apply to me? That's a really good way of doing it. And you know, it's kind of interesting that the recommendation from all the public health departments are saying, don't go to the hospital, call your doctor if you're sick, you know, about the COVID-19 thing. And so you go to your doctor, and what do they tell the doctors? Well, there's nothing, we don't have any tests for you, you can't do anything. It's like, well, what am I supposed to do with all of these people who are calling me and they're sick, and the public health department say, call their doctor. And then they tell the doctor, well, you know, we don't have any tests for you. They're sorry, can't do anything. But today we're gonna have some ideas that you can bring to your doctor and say, is this gonna work for me, or should I try this, or can I get a prescription for this? So we'll have some good ideas today.
Yeah, that's good advice. All right. Hey, I see Matt on here. Hey, welcome, Matt. Good to see you. Hey, and everybody watching this, if you are not currently a part of our 610 Reset Facebook page or group, go to Facebook, type in 610 Reset, And then check out that, request to join that, because that's where we post a lot of, we get to know each other more during the week. And Matt shared a testimonial video of his story in that site that is awesome. And it's just a really good encouragement. And he talks about some things that he did. One thing in particular that he said was a game changer. And so we want to make sure that everybody that's on Facebook is in that group. So go there, request to join it, and we'd love to have you join that community. It's absolutely free, and we post different things in there. We post replays to the video here as well. And then one other form of housekeeping, if you go to bartonwebinar.com, that is the main site that we talk about just to reference our different products, including the Diabetes Solution Kit. And I've got something on my screen that's making the Golden Gate Bridge show up behind me, it looks like. So, but that's where you can, oh, that is nice. Look at that. That is beautiful. So there's a setting on Zoom that I've been playing with. Anyways, bartonwebinar.com. You can find a link to our Facebook page for the 610 reset. Now I got, wow, I need to turn off the setting here. 1 second here. I'm fading into the,
May have had
there we
someone
go.
on our team call yesterday.
Yeah, that was fun. All right. So, yes. And also a link to our YouTube page, which I recommend highly subscribing to our channel, which I believe is called Barton Publishing TV. And so you can get a replay of all of the different webinars that we have done. And we have been going on over 6 months now, doing these free diabetes reversal webinars. So without further ado, Scott, let's talk about immunity.
Okay. We often think that we have an immune system, like it's one system. And in a sense it is, but it's actually made up of a lot of different parts of this system. And so last time we were talking about vitamin D and how important vitamin D was for our ability to have macrophages or cellular immunity. And this is the part of the immune system that's not specific to any one thing. In other words, we think of like the antibodies come and they bind to something and they grab onto the bacteria, and then they can lyse and break open the bacteria because they know, oh, that's a bacteria, that's not supposed to be there, and they grab onto it. The cellular part is not that specific. It doesn't say, oh, that's not supposed to be here, and recognize things. It recognizes something in a little different way. It looks at your system or your cells as like a row of houses, and all of the houses in this row are yellow. And this one house is green. And they go, that house is kind of out of place. And so we're gonna tear that house down and put a yellow house up. And that's what that part of the system does. It doesn't recognize it as this is a very specific bad cell or virus or bacteria. It just says, that's the wrong shade. And what's really neat about that is that it can be very broad in how it protects our bodies. So these are the things that protect us from cancer. So our advice to take vitamin D to prevent 50% of all flu, for example, will also prevent 50% of all cancer. And the studies on vitamin D are dramatic as far as people with low vitamin D in the below 10 range are very prone to infections, especially viral infections and cancer as well. So because the cancer is one of those cells that's the greenhouse, and the macrophages come by and say, hey, that's the wrong color. Let's take that one out, and they take that cancer cell out because cancer cells are your cells. They're going to have your antibodies. They're going to have your proteins on them. So antibodies aren't going to say that, oh, that's a bad cell. You need macrophages to do that. So that's why vitamin D, as we were talking about last time, is so important, and this cellular immunity is so important. This is the first line of defense against viruses and abnormal cells and cancer and what we call senescent cells, which are the ones that are dying. It takes out all the dying cells too. So any abnormalities that are just abnormal are removed by this non-specific part of the immune system. It's really fascinating.
Excellent. Yeah, no, that's cool. Good analogy about the yellow houses and the greenhouses. Look, I mean, sometimes people have overactive immune systems that like do too much. Like, what's any idea what causes that, or is that just something that happens and you have to deal with?
Yeah. Okay. So then you have another part of the immune system that's more specific, and it's we think of it as these soldiers marching, ching, 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 and they're marching out to war, to battle against all those bad bacteria. And we're going to kill them all off, and they have green uniforms, and the other one has blue uniforms, and you know that's not a really good analogy. It's a better way to think of that part, what you're talking about, where the immune system comes overactive, that's the janitors. Those are the cleanup people, and they're just janitors, and they have all the cellular debris around, and they're cleaning up the cellular debris. And in the process of doing that, they're making antibodies against these proteins that they're cleaning up, so that they know which ones they need to clean up. So if you have an abnormal, let's say, thyroid function, where your cells need more T3, but your thyroid gland isn't making the T4 or the T3. So they make all this extra TPO enzyme, to convert, to make more of the thyroid. But if that enzyme isn't functional, then it just gets kicked out, and your blood system fills up with it, and the immune system just goes, oh, you know what? There's too much of this around. We got to get rid of it. And it's just the janitors. They have to go sweep it up and clean it all up and take it into the dustpan and dump it out. And they reprocess all of these proteins. In the process of doing that, they make antibodies against TPO, and you end up with something called Hashimotos thyroiditis, an autoimmune disease. But a lot of autoimmune disease is just these proteins, excess proteins that are being made, either because cells are dying when they're not supposed to because of a lot of inflammation, or because they're making too much. Either way, the janitors are coming to clean up, and we call it autoimmune disease. But it's really the cleanup part. And so we try and suppress the immune system. So, quit cleaning up all these extra proteins, when we should work on the other end and quit making all these extra proteins. So if we fix the issue. So let's go back to Hashimoto's thyroiditis. If you're missing selenium, then the protein TPO doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, then you're not making enough thyroid. But the system says we need more TPO. So the body makes more, but it's not working, so they kick it out. And then you make more, but it's not working, so they kick it out. And then they make more, and they make more, and they make more. They keep making more and more, but it's not working because there's no selenium, the necessary mineral that's supposed to be there. So because of that, the immune system sees all this excess TPO, and it's going, oh my gosh, we got to clean all this up. So then that's where we get the autoimmune Hashimoto's thyroiditis. But it's really just a non-functional enzyme. If we give somebody selenium, and this has been shown, this actually works in Japan. They gave selenium, and the antibody levels started dropping down. Autoimmune disease went away just by fixing the problem, the underlying problem.
You put selenium in cinechroma. You can talk about why you did that?
Yeah, selenium is actually a very important protein for the function of the metabolism. Metabolism is how we make energy. And there's a couple of things that are really important. One of them is thyroid, and the other one is glutathione. And when we have enough glutathione, when diabetics especially have enough glutathione, then they don't get neuropathy in their legs and feet. And so we can prevent them from getting numbness in the feet, and then infections, and then, you know, amputations. The number one cause of amputations is diabetes. And so if we can prevent the neuropathy by getting enough glutathione, which is often, again, lacking selenium, could cause that. And then allowing the thyroid to function well. So selenium is really important in both of those functions to help diabetics.
Yeah, Leslie had a good question. I'll ask it here, but can you get selenium in any foods?
No and yes. Everybody says you can take Brazil nuts. If Brazil nuts are grown in eastern Brazil, in the rainforest, where there's a whole bunch of selenium in the soil, then they're a great source of selenium. But if Brazil nuts are grown somewhere else where there isn't high selenium in the soil, then it doesn't, because plants don't need selenium. There's only selenium in our foods if there's selenium in the soil. And since the plants don't need it to grow or produce fruit or anything, then farmers aren't going to spend money to put selenium in the soil when they're fertilizing their fields and crops and stuff. So generally Americans are low in selenium. Almost all Americans are low in selenium because we don't have high selenium soils. There are some areas of the world, in China, there's some areas that have really high selenium in the soils, and they can get selenium toxicity from eating just the foods that grow in their own environment, their own gardens. And then Brazil, of course.
How much selenium causes toxicity?
I read this once a long time ago. It's a pretty narrow range where below a certain level, you increase your risk of cancer because you have low glutathione and then above a certain level, you get toxicity and it increases your risk of cancer again. So you have this, and then the window of how much you need. A high level, I remember reading that only 1 milligram a day could raise your levels up to having too much.
Okay.
So the amount we give, like in Synachroma, is 200 micrograms. It says 200, everybody goes, oh my gosh, 1 milligram. No, this is 200 micrograms. This is 0.2 milligrams. So it's 1/5 of what might be a toxic dose.
Okay. And so if you took a bunch of it, like I've been taking, well, ramping up vitamin D, you know, just to boost immunity and stuff, but like having too much selenium isn't going to last. I mean, it's not like it's going to do damage or anything unless you keep doing that all the time, right? If you like take doses. Yeah. Right.
So toxicity, it has nothing to do with the element itself. It's the amount and over how much period of time. And so if you were to get, you know, multiple, you know, tens or hundreds of milligrams of selenium all at once, you could get toxic all at once. Or if you were to get just 1 milligram over a long period of time. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. What do we got in the chat here, Leslie?
I'm actually just posting this over on our Facebook live as well, but our friend Cheryl at Barton Publishing just sent a link to an article that Dr. Saunders has actually written about selenium. So make sure you click on that. Don't go read it right now. Stay on the webinar, but keep it. Keep it so that you can read it when we're done. So I'll post that. I just posted it in the chat on Zoom, and then I posted it on the Facebook Live as well. I think we did have a question here, though, for Dr. Saunders. Is there a relationship between Hashimoto's and diabetes?
Very good question. No, not specifically. There, people who have Hashimoto's tend to have low thyroid. So their metabolism might be messed up. And if they have already a propensity to diabetes, then they might increase their risk of diabetes only because their metabolism is decreased because their thyroid is low and not functioning well. So the metabolic aspects maybe, but not really like as far as an autoimmune disease, there isn't a relationship specifically. Directly, indirectly maybe, but not directly.
Okay.
Yeah, if there's people watching that have questions, feel free to type them into the chat and we will have them ask them to Dr. Saunders for you. So that's a big part of why we do these. So, okay, let's keep talking about immunity. So let's get into what should people be doing right now, especially with all the COVID-19 coronavirus stuff going on. Yeah.
Okay, so because this virus spreads really easily and really well, like most people who come in contact with it are going to get it, it's important to have a good immune function. And why is that important? Because we know that children, for example, in China, have out of 1,500 children who tested positive, only about 5% got sick enough that they were, seriously ill that needed maybe hospitalization. And only one died. One 14-year-old boy died, and he had pre-existing conditions. So the children just, they don't get seriously ill from it very much. They have generally pretty good immune systems. Whereas adults tend to have a little more, and as you get older, it's worse. So if you look at Italy, the average age of those who die from the COVID-19 positive in Italy is 81. Yeah. 81 years old. So, so looking at what does that have to do with our immune function? Because as we get older, there are a lot of toxicities we build up, autoimmunities, and immune dysfunction happens over a long period of time. So what should we be doing to prevent that? And we talked last time a little bit about vitamin D. And the vitamin D level, some studies were done as low as 2,000 units. Probably 5 to 10,000 is optimal. And we have in like the synchromal we talked about last time is 5,000, which is probably good. Some people are taking 2 synchrom a day. That would be 10,000 a day. And that's fine too. That's all of that is within the optimum range. I take 50,000 units once a week. 50,000 is a physiologic dose. When you go out in the sun on a summer day, you could make easily 20,000 units in 10 minutes of sunshine on your skin. So in the summer, in the wintertime, you don't make it. That's why there's a seasonal flu. And that's why we have the COVID-19 happening, in the Northern Hemisphere in the wintertime. Although Australia did get a significant number of cases. So what else? Zinc. Zinc is really important for your immunity, and a lot of Americans especially are deficient in zinc. It's another one of those things that is found in not very many things. It's found in meat, a lot of meats, and seeds, nuts and seeds. But we don't eat a lot of whole grains, for example. So because we process, we eat white rice and white flour, pasta, and so these processed grains don't have the zinc in them anymore. So we often miss zinc, and most Americans are deficient in zinc or low in zinc. And so having a good amount of zinc makes a big difference. And studies have shown that you can improve your immune function. In other words, prevent illness by getting enough zinc.
You mentioned meat, Scott. Can we talk
Yeah.
about that a little bit? I think some people, I mean, we hear a lot of different things, like don't eat red meat or don't eat too much of this or that. Like what do you tell people about meat? How much to have, what kind to have, lean meat versus.
Oh, that's a good question, because it is so individual. Some people I've had people on in fact, I have one person right now I put on a carnivore diet, and that is nothing but meat. Well, she can have meat and vegetables. She can have salads and meat, but basically a meat diet. No grains, no fruit, no root vegetables, just some greens and meat, and that's all. Because she's a little unusual. She has had surgery on her abdomen. She has half a pancreas, and so she can't digest things very well. And it's kind of interesting that meat is fairly easy to digest as far as foods go. As far as proteins, meat is relatively easy to digest. If you've ever had ceviche, ceviche is in Mexico. They don't cook the fish. They have all these different kinds of fish and shellfish and shrimp, and they baste it in lime juice. And over time, the lime juice cooks the fish, and it cooks it by denaturing the proteins, which is the same thing that happens when you heat it up. You denature the proteins. It's the same kind of thing. But lime juice is a pH of 4. Well, I think a little less than that, but it's not a very a high acid. Like your stomach is a pH of 1. And it sounds opposite, but it's reversed. The lower the number, the higher the acid content. Mm-hmm. And so your stomach juices are much stronger acid than lime juice, and yet you can digest meat. So meat is not, it's not bad for you. It's not bad to digest. You know what? Just people overeat, and if you ate a small amounts of it, it's really good for you. And the only things that are missing from meat are vitamin C. But if you ate raw meat, you could actually get plenty of vitamin C from raw meat. The problem is when you cook it, you destroy a lot of the vitamin C. So meat is not bad. It's just that people overeat. That's really the problem.
Mm-hmm. Leslie, where can we get ceviche in Sioux Falls? Because I agree, I love ceviche, and I haven't had any for a long time.
Well, you can actually get it in Brandon at that Mexican restaurant.
Really?
Yeah, and also at Gilberto's. Any of those places. So good.
It's good stuff. All right.
Yeah, you can find Mexican restaurants everywhere in the world. I was in Poland one time in Warsaw, and we were there on Cinco de Mayo, and we said, hey, let's go to a Mexican restaurant. We looked it up. There were 5 Mexican restaurants in Warsaw. You know, you can't find 5 Polish restaurants in all of Los Angeles. You know, it's like the Mexican restaurants are everywhere. I had a patient who I put her on a diet, and she was Mexican, and I said, you can't have any tortillas and you can't have any pozole and no grains, no corn, no burritos, and she just broke down. No rice, and she just broke down, crying. I'm like, what's wrong? She goes, I'll never lose weight. And I said, why not? She said, because Mexican food is so good.
I think it's my favorite. It might be my favorite too.
Yeah, it is good. So there are some types of meats that you want to avoid, I would assume. You want to talk about that a little bit and why?
Okay. There are no meats that you have to avoid. It's just people overeat. So if you have, you know, sausage and bacon and stuff like that, I wouldn't recommend the bacon diet. But you know, if you have bacon occasionally, it's fine.
What about
you get a,
processed meats like salami and pepperonis and different things like that? Is that, got to be some stuff in there that isn't so good for us necessarily.
yeah, there is. There's nitrates in there. But again, remember toxicity. We talked about toxicity. That is when you get too much of something. And you can get too much of anything. So if you get too much nitrates in your meats, if you're eating processed meats all the time, yeah, that's not good for you. You know, if you live on salami and bologna and bacon and sausage all the time, then you know you can definitely get toxic on that. But you can get toxic on water. I've had a lot of people who come in and they're just drinking. Good work, Joe.
They might not have saw that on the camera, but I just took a big swig of water. So, yeah. What was I going to ask?
So the issue is too much. That's the issue.
So that we could transition into the 610 reset, and let's talk about that again in case somebody's watching this and hasn't heard about it. So what is the 610 reset and why does it work? Why is it so good for you?
Okay, so we're talking about the immune function, and immunity is based a lot on the adrenal function, and our adrenals control how our metabolism works and how our immunity works. So it is very important that we have a good adrenal function so that our immune systems function well. When people have a lot of stress, it just suppresses their immune system and they get sick really easily and they get allergies and all kinds of immune dysfunction problems, autoimmunity from long periods of stress. So what the 610 reset is to protect your adrenal glands so that you have good circadian rhythms. You have a wide circadian rhythm instead of this really narrow range where you don't have any stress tolerance. As you widen out your adrenal function, you get more stress tolerance, and then your immune system will function better. And what that is, you start your adrenal function at between 7 and 8 o'clock in the morning. You have breakfast, and when you eat breakfast, it doesn't matter that you eat a whole lot, but have a good breakfast, and that gets your adrenal glands started, and it gets everything else started as well. And then stop eating by 6 o'clock in the evening. At 6 o'clock is not a rule by itself. The rule is to go to bed with an empty stomach, but since it takes about 4 hours for the stomach to empty, then you need to finish eating by 6 so that by 10 o'clock when you go to bed, you have an empty stomach. So that is the 610. 6 is stop eating by 6 o'clock, go to bed by 10, and then get up in the morning and eat breakfast. That is the 610 reset for improving your adrenal function and keeping your stress, being able to tolerate stress a lot better and keep good immune function.
Yeah, and honestly, if you have eaten some things that you shouldn't have, as long as you empty them out and are sleeping by 10, like your body has an amazing, does an amazing job of cleaning that out, right?
Right. So when you eat those sausages and have that bologna and all of that, when you have an empty stomach, you detox. It's the process, our normal process of detox that we get to do every day. It's awesome.
Would you say sleep is probably the most important thing for our immune health? Like,
it's way up there, because when we don't sleep, especially if we miss those first 4 hours of sleep, the 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., that midnight time, before midnight time of sleep, then we get higher stress hormone levels, our blood pressure goes up, the immune system is suppressed, we get infections more easily, we get gum disease more easily, we get heart disease more easily, we get diabetes more easily because we become more resistant to insulin. So for all those reasons, yeah, sleep is really important. Getting to sleep by 10 o'clock is really important.
Well, I've noticed with the with my kids all home now, and Amanda doesn't have to get up early to go to do her water aerobics. Like, we're sleeping in later and staying up later. So we're kind of getting into some bad habits here. I don't know if anyone else is doing that or not, but Leslie raised her hand. Yeah, so that's something, I haven't been doing a great job of, but this is a good reminder to kick me in the butt a little bit here. So yeah, good stuff. So the Facebook page is 610 Reset. Would love to have you guys join it if you're not already in there. And yeah, it makes a total difference when you do get to bed early and you feel amazing the next day. It's hard to explain unless you've tried it. So bed by 10 o'clock on an empty stomach. Thanks for sharing that with us, Scott. That's been awesome. Helped a lot of people. All right.
That I was going to mention is that if you are in that 610 group, over the next couple of weeks, I'll be posting some of our really good webinars, and it's a really good opportunity for you guys to go back and listen to those. Dr. Saunders has spent a lot of time researching a lot of these things. And so watch those webinars. I know many of us are at home with a little bit more downtime than we normally have. And so take advantage of that. Check out the webinars that I'm posting in the group and watch those. And then make sure that you subscribe to our channel as well. You'll get notifications when new things post in case you miss one of the webinars or you want to go search for some more information, you'll be able to do that. So little side note there.
Yeah. So if anybody has questions right now, let's see if we can answer those, and then we probably wrap up a little early today because we have less people joining us because I think Zoom had some glitches and didn't send an email out. So we had to go back.
So can I make a correction?
Yes. Yes.
Last week there was a really good question about something that President Trump had brought up about an antibiotic against malaria that might be working for the COVID-19 virus. And I wasn't familiar with it, so I made something up. I've done a lot of research on that, and it's called Plaquenil or hydroxychloroquine. That they are using in China, and it does prevent the virus from getting into cells. So it does slow down the infection, allow the immune system to take over more quickly, and it clears the virus more quickly than if you don't take it. So it actually is an antibiotic for malaria that's also been used quite a bit for arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis. And it does help clear the virus. It does work. If any of my patients get COVID-19 and they test positive, I'm going to put them on it. And so another one, what I said in the beginning, something that you can bring to your doctor is, okay, it's called Plaquenil, Plaquenil. Plaquenil is hydroxychloroquine. And when you add that with azithromycin, which is the brand name is Zithromax. When you put those two together, within 5 days, the levels of virus drop to 0 on the tests. So it's much more rapid than if you do nothing at all. It could be 14 days before you clear the virus. So you could be shedding virus for 2 to 3 times as long if you don't take the antibiotics. So those antibiotics, they do work. They're available. So it's not something weird or unusual. They've been used for many, many years for other kinds of infections. And so that would be a useful thing to do.
How do you feel about that compared to a vaccine?
Well, the vaccine, the issues with the vaccine are, a lot of them have to do with that the virus can change over time. And so if the virus is changing, then the vaccine that you got for this one isn't good for the next one. And that's kind of the problem with the flu vaccine, is they have to guess. Is this going, what's going to be going around next year? They have to guess the future. And they're notoriously bad about guessing the future. So I suspect the vaccine isn't going to be very useful either.
Okay, we do have a couple questions here. I have one from Facebook. Let's see. No, I can't see it. Is 6 hours of sleep good, or should we push for 8?
Okay. Pushing for sleep. Okay, the best way to do this is to assess yourself. So first of all, make sure you get deep sleep. And the deep sleep is between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. So sleeping those 4 hours, that's number one. And then after that, you get REM sleep. And the REM sleep, you could do 2 hours at a time. I mean, you could do it in different, you can break it up. So if you got, 4 hours of sleep, deep sleep at night during those early hours of night, and then you're up for a couple hours and then you go back to sleep or take a nap during the day, that's okay. And that actually works really well. And, humans have lived that way for a long, long time. There was a book written recently on sleep where they described from in the past, descriptions of sleep in the past. They called it the first sleep and the second sleep. The first sleep is the when you go to bed early, the sun goes down, if you don't have any candles to burn, and it was before artificial lights, before we had electric lights, then the people would it's dark, and they would make melatonin and go to sleep. And then they'd be up around, midnight, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and they'd be wide awake. And that's when a lot of things happen. That's when, people would actually go to their neighbors and steal stuff, and the nighttime things would happen. And then there was a second sleep where they'd go back to sleep and sleep for another 4 hours till the sun came up. And that wasn't an uncommon way for people to sleep before there was an electric light available. So if you sleep those early hours of the night, and then you're awake for a little while, and then you sleep later and get several more hours of sleep, or take a nap, that works, and that's fine. So how do you know? Here's how you know. If you're fine during the day, if you feel okay, if you're not sleepy, if you're not falling asleep in meetings, falling asleep while you're driving, if you're not drowsy, then you're getting enough sleep. It's the only way we have of telling. So the number of hours, might be an issue, but really assess yourself by if you're drowsy.
Okay, that's good. Let's see, Matt asks, how does an extended fast help with immunity?
Oh, this is really good. Okay, extended fasting is more than 3 days, and it could be as long as 30 days or even more. That guy that in Scotland that went 300 and whatever, almost 400 days of fasting. But an extended fast shuts down the inflammatory mediators in the immune system. It shuts off the hyperimmunity, and it cleans up by autophagy. It eats up all of the dead cells. And what's really interesting is dead cells produce inflammatory mediators like IL-17A, which is what causes blindness. In the article in Home Cures at Work, we discussed that. Why do diabetics go blind? And it's this IL-17A that's made by these cells that are dead but hanging around, and they're just because they're dead. It's like having a dead animal in the middle of the road. It really stinks after a while. These cells are dead, they're laying around, but they're not cleaned up yet by the immune system. So what happens when you're not eating for a long period of time, you clean up everything. You clean up all of the cancer cells, you can clean up all the dead cells, and it shuts down, and it very specifically shuts down the production of inflammatory mediators. And so in the process of cleaning up, it brightens up everything and gets all of the dead animals out of your roads, and it's amazing at cleaning up and helping then the autoimmunity goes away too, because it shuts off, like we were talking about Hashimotos and others, autoimmune diseases. By turning it off, you can turn off rheumatoid arthritis, all kinds of things. It's really good.
Awesome. Great question. Yeah, Matt shared in his video how much the intermittent fasting was a game changer for his blood sugars and stuff. So that was really good to hear. Thanks again for sharing that, Matt. Yeah. Well, I think it's probably about time for us to wrap things up here. And this has been a great call. And it feels like things are starting to shift in the whole coronavirus world, at least from what I'm seeing and sensing. So I hope more and more people are feeling that as well, that we're getting a lot of questions answered, and there's a little bit more hope that things are going to get back to normal here a little sooner, hopefully. And so I thought it was kind of funny yesterday, President Trump was talking about, it's going to be weeks and not months here. And somebody asked him, well, are your doctors supportive of that? He's like, nah, if the doctors had anything to do with it, they'd shut everything down for 2 years. But he's like, we can't shut down America. So I thought that was funny. But Scott, I'm glad that you're not like most doctors, and that's another way where yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't shut down the world.
No.
Keep them going.
Yeah. So thanks for keeping us informed and telling us what we can do. Like you said, 70% of Americans will probably have the coronavirus. And so the best thing to do is to have your immune system built up and optimized, and, be taking a lot of vitamin D3. And so that when you do get it, your symptoms are going to be minimized, and you'll probably have mild symptoms, if anything. That's what we're shooting for. So yeah, if you have any closing comments there, Scott.
Well, remember that it's not just popping pills. I've had several people who've told me exactly how much dose do I need of zinc and how much do I need of vitamin D and exactly. And I give them a range and they go, no, I need an exact number. That's a minor part of the issue. The major part of the issue is don't stress, don't panic. We're all going to get sick at some point. That's part of being human. And so, take care of your immune system. And stress is a really big problem. It's better to relax and meditate periodically. Prayer is a great form of meditation and brings you back into what's really important. And one of the nice things, I think, for me, during this period of time is I can step back and say, what's really important? I'm separated from my family, that I can't fly. I'm stuck in California, can't fly. So I'm alone here, and I have to go, okay, what's really important?
Yeah, for sure. Amen. Yeah. Well, I pray for everybody right now that you would all be blessed and healthy and safe. And we're thankful for you being here with us. Thank you that we can call you friends, and we'll see you guys next week. And God bless you all. Thank you, Dr. Saunders.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Thanks for joining us, everybody.